History in 10, a production of the Cedarburg Public Library. My name is Jeff Messerman. I am the Adult Services Librarian. You can find me upstairs at the information desk if you would like to find books about what we discussed today. And I'm joined today by Jerry Anderson, retired history teacher who taught on the high school level.
And you can't keep me away from it. I just love history, and I'm here to share a story with you today there, Jeff.
It's an addiction.
Yes.
And we're helping you along. All right.
Okay.
What do you have for us today?
Well, it sounds like a mundane subject, but food. Recently, I just read that there are high levels of lead and cadmium, which is another heavy metal, in chocolates of all types, even cocoa powder.
So you came here to ruin my day. Is that what I'm hearing? Thanks, Jerry.
Well, no, we're going to flip back into the past here.
Okay.
Now, and baby food, has arsenic, lead, cadmium, mercury, which all enter through the soil and the air and whatever else. And
apples are a problem too. I guess apples have a lot of arsenic issues. So.
Yeah, and a doctor I once knew said that we live in a chemical soup, and that sounds very disgusting and frightening all at the same time. But these facts just led me to think about, the good old days. We kind of idolize the good old days. Oh, things are so much better in the past. Well, I wanted to look into it. Well, what about the food supply in the past? What was it like? And I found some surprising things that I thought I would share with you today.
I'm excited. Bring it on.
Here we go. Now, just shopping. What was it like living in a big city or a town? In large cities and towns, many people shopped at second-hand food markets and shops. Now, this is something we would not even think about, a second-hand food shop.
Used food?
Yeah, well, almost, you could say that's what it is.
Pre-chewed.
And people could select from leftover groceries and cast-off meat, trimmings, and bones from butcher shops.
Nothing's more appetizing than, I'll be making burgers tonight with cast-off meat.
Yeah, and there were I guess there's a reason you have the dates on the food there. And these things that people bought were often decayed and smelly. But this was all they could afford because food was very expensive for poor people. And
well, let me ask you this. Was there, maybe you're going to get to this, was there a lot of foodborne illness issues then?
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Okay, I'm just curious. Very good.
Yeah, there was a lack of rules and standards for cleanliness for the street vendors and corner grocers, and they often sold food that today would be considered unfit for human consumption.
Most foul.
That's basically it, yeah. Yes. So food was put out on counters, exposed to the air. There was no refrigeration, at this time. Meats, vegetables, fruits, and dairy products were left out for days and became putrid. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
The open air was dirty with coal dust, which was used for heating for homes, and manure dust, because this was in the days before internal combustion engine. And the dust got on the food, in your hair, on your clothes, and into your home. Things were not very clean.
So now we're in a chemical soup. Back then we were in a poop soup.
Is
that what I'm hearing?
I would think that,
okay.
yeah. The chemicals were in abeyance at that time, not even invented probably, but
It's just poop everywhere. All right. Good.
But the poor had no alternative to this. This is what they could afford. Poor kids regularly ate rotten food, and there were no programs like school lunches or whatever to cover that.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get rid of those programs right now as we
like
speak. So are we going to go back to this? No, let poor people just starve. Bring back those secondhand food stores for the poor people. That's what they deserve.
All that manure in your lunch might be doing good for you. I don't know.
Just so everyone knows, I am progressive and liberal, and I do not advocate that. We're just making light.
And I am a librarian, and I'm a librarian, and I have no opinion until 5 p.m. when I punch the clock.
Yeah. Now, what about milk? For example, let's just zero in on a few things.
Sure.
Milk. Now, milk was sent into towns and cities daily via,
You're doing good.
Via railroads or wagons, and it was often adulterated. And I found the general sort of recipe that was used. Farmers or the people who marketed it in the cities would take 50% milk and 50% water and then they would add plaster of Paris or chalk to it to give it back the white color, and then maybe put a little molasses in it for flavoring, and that's what you got for milk. That's if you can, had went out to the markets on the street and in stores, and grocers at respectable grocery stores, they would buy this and then they would adulterate it if it weren't already adulterated.
Man, everyone's got their fingers in your milk.
I know. Jeez. So this was not really a good situation.
It's not ideal, no.
I found this out. This was disgusting. Distilleries that brewed whiskey and beer in cities kept stables of cows that were fed leftover mash and waste from making whiskey and beer. And they were often diseased and old animals who had to be hoisted up with winches to get them off the ground. Then they were milked, and then they sold the milk, and the grocers and people on the street would sell it to people. And this was called swill milk because it made people and babies both tipsy and sick, and you were endangering your life even by doing it. You could get drunk off this stuff because of that. This is interesting. This is what drove Milton Hershey to distraction when he was in New York City, because he was trying to make milk chocolate of a higher quality, a commercial quality, but he could never get the milk. It was always being adulterated. How do you make a quality product? So he decided that he was going to take his operations and move out to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And so if the milk couldn't come to him, he would go to the milk.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that's how he ended up out there. And then you have
milk chocolate. Yeah.
That whole thing. And
my favorite kind.
Then he bought his own farms, had his own cows, quality control. And here's an interesting thing. I have to throw this in. Milton Hershey was a gambler. He had a gambling addiction.
Sure.
He loved to gamble, and he would always go down to Havana, Cuba, to gamble there.
Okay.
Because it was legal in a wide open place. And then while he was down there, he noticed all the sugar plantations. So he started to buy the sugar plantations.
Right.
And then he had a supply of sugar. Now, butter could be another questionable purchase. I'm focusing on kind of the real basic things here.
Certainly, yeah.
It was often blended in unsanitary sheds in back streets and was a mix of, get this, Jeff, mashed potatoes, leftover animal fats and parts with a bit of bleach to give it the color of butter. Yummy. So here we go. The good old days, they were terrible.
Really? Got bad news for you folks.
Grocers bought this concoction, and then they would relabel it. They would call it Best Creamery Butter or Western Butter, giving it, that's the same thing they do today. They say all these wonderful things about these products that are actually killing us.
And more than likely, yeah.
So, and canned, bakers, especially with bread, were notorious for their adulteration of their breads. They used chalk and plaster of Paris. And speaking of candy, here, candies that were sold in stores and on the street were full of colorful but very toxic and poisonous dyes that were put in there only to capture the attention of children and make them desire it. And here, Jeff, you love coffee. I know you do. We're both fans of coffee. And if you bought coffee in a store, it could be a mixture of roasted beans and peas flavored with chicory and rye.
Oh, sure.
Which really is shorthand for indigestion and any sort of stomach distress.
Sure.
Were epidemic. Patent medicines were often nothing more than alcohol-based or, worse, filled with laudanum and opium.
Oh, lovely.
That would say.
Snake oil.
I think
Snake
a
oil.
concoction of laudanum and opium would solve any problem you had. But the scandalous thing was this was regularly marketed and sold to women for menstrual cramps, and then they became addicted to it.
Right. Thank you, Jerry. It's been fun. We'll be back next week.